is so self-incriminating. It's insane how arrogant these people are, because they're so convinced they'll get away with it. They're convinced there won't be any evidence. They're convinced I won't be in the position to publish it. They're convinced nobody will watch. They're convinced nobody will interact with my expose. They're convinced nobody will care about my expose. They're convinced nobody will share it. So, to put an end to this, it is imperative that you interact with this, and that, you know, it changes the algorithm to make this video, to make these videos, my whole expose, more available online. Share it. That's a direct way to make sure it's available to more people. Bring this out of the shadows, end the secrecy, end the secretive underground human trafficking of MK Ultra victims.
Hello, it's Rachel Caruso here. The police department, probably just another call handler. Excuse me, I was eating. Just called. So I'm expecting them to call again. I missed the call. And so today is Thursday, August 6, 2020, and this correspondence is about a police report I filed online. Trigger. Got a little PTSD going right now. Because I was really triggered. The call handler, named Simon, wouldn't give me his last name, shoulder number 56487 of Devon and Cornwall Police. He said a program trigger yesterday, and the way he set it up in a certain context, and there was a lot of gaslighting. And this really connects to my trauma in the fraudulent NRM, the National Referral Mechanism in the UK, and the fraudulent asylum system. It's like one of the biggest traumas, like more so than the original programming, because I wasn't absent from it. I wasn't dissociated into different personalities who kept the knowledge of everything that was happening to me. I was facing a really gruesome reality. And so, yeah, not having that function of total dissociation. I was definitely dissociated, and in a different way from before when I was asleep to the MK Ultra. But not having that made the pain more unbearable. So I'm just kind of talking through this to settle my energies. Thanks for listening, and you know, this is what it looks like to be dealing with this kind of life, MK Ultra trafficking. I need to like get my head straight around like I'm not actually reporting this because I believe or want the police to do anything about it. I mean, would I want them to? Yes, but I'm not needing them to in order to live my life, in order to live my best life, in order to feel safe. In essence, actually, I reported this to stand up for myself, and then to give an opportunity to expose the police when they don't do their job. So just like yesterday with Simon gaslighting me, pretending like he wasn't looking at my reports, and just neglecting and twisting all the information of my police reports. So they're not smart enough to call right back. That's what they did yesterday. I said I was available from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it is 12:30. And 12:41 and still no call back. So I'll show you that they did call. So those are the recent calls. 2 yesterday, back to back, then 1 today. It's a withheld number, of course. And I did reiterate, I've sent emails. Let me start again. I sent emails, 2 emails to the police to say that I've been trying to get through and it's impossible. So I was on hold for an hour, at least one other time, and like a half an hour another time. And so that's why I sent them emails and I told them what's the time that I was available, the window of time I was available to speak on the phone those days. The emails went ignored, unanswered, didn't receive phone calls. And then like 3 days later, yesterday, they call me. And so he was like, oh, well, if you're not sure you want to not be anonymous and you want to give me your name so that we can do something about your report, because without your identity, we won't do anything about your report, then you can think about it and get back to me. And I said, no, I made it clear in my emails that it's been impossible to get through on 101, so we're going to stay on the line. And then I told him the window of time that I was available today, 10 to 1. So they know that it's been impossible to connect with them. So a single call is not sufficient. And it looks like they're not going to call back again. Give me only 15 minutes of my available time, have a phone conversation. It's already 12:45. So this is clearly not an effort to actually connect with me and actually talk with me and actually take my information and actually investigate the crime, actually do something about the crime that was reported, the major crime of kidnapping and human trafficking. So I also put in my reports, there were officers in the local police force who were a part of my trafficking, and I repeated that to Simon. And again, that was something that he pretended that was information he didn't know, that he hadn't received before. Like these are key parts of serious crime. And he's turned it into, the bus driver just harangued me for 30 seconds on the bus. That's literally his words. So I got a text just now from, it just says DC Police, Devon and Cornwall Police. Let me show you. So we got the date and time right there. And I now have a crime reference number. So I'm trying to remember from all my chaotic and horrific experience in the NRM, all the times I talked to the police. You first, whenever you call, like whether it's investigated or they take it as a crime or not, anytime you report something, you contact the police, you're given a log number or a log ID. And then when there's been an actual crime identified is when you get a crime reference number, I believe. And so here they've given me a crime reference number. All right, so your crime reference is, so I'm just not showing my log number or the crime reference number. Thanks, I tried to call but got no reply, kind regards, and that's it. So there's no, again, it's like no identity of anybody. They say I, not we, like we the police, I, but so he called once. And so this apparently is the end of their attempts to contact me. So no voicemail, just the text message 15 minutes later. And so they're apparently acknowledging that there was a crime. Lord knows what they're going to turn it into, just probably something really minor like harassment, not kidnapping, not human trafficking, not a hate crime. And so they're acknowledging there's a crime, but they've made very little attempts to contact the victim. They've made minimal attempts. They've obviously neglected any efforts. So that shows you something right there.
Thank you for calling 101.
I'm going to try to call.
Devon and Cornwall
We'll see how long I'll be on hold.
If you require an alternative force, press hash.
So also something I wanted to note was, now that they've given me a crime reference number, they're acknowledging there's a crime that is being investigated. they should have given me some police officers or detectives' direct phone number. So that's that's the protocol. And especially, you know, they know that I haven't been able to get through 101, and they're still making me chase them, spend hours trying to contact them and failing through 101. So this isn't the legal process. So I want you to understand that. They're not following like a basic protocol at all. Not providing me anybody's contact number who would have been assigned my case already, or just anybody's contact number with I have a crime reference number. So you saw in the text, there was nothing about further contact. It wasn't call us back at when you can. It wasn't we'll try you at this time or on this day again. And they only called once. That's not an effort. So I thought maybe I would also have an email with more details, like somebody's phone number. Check my email. Nope. It's 12:56 p.m. now. So about 10 minutes after that text. But I am showing you my past emails. Trying to. I have to cut off my log number. So when I couldn't get through after spending hours on hold with 101 on Monday, I emailed, said I've tried calling 101 numerous times, have been left on hold for at least an hour every time. It's literally impossible to get through. I'm available to talk on the phone today until 2 p.m. if you can give me a call. No response, no call. The next day, on Tuesday, 24 hours later, again, I'm available to talk until 2 p.m. I would appreciate a call. Thanks. And I didn't receive a call or an email. And then it was more than 24 hours after that that I finally received a call yesterday. So I've been on hold only for about like 5 minutes. I'll give it 5 more. I've been on hold for 21 minutes. 21. And it's 1:14 p.m. All right, checking in again. It's been 32 minutes.
You can find out about policing priorities in your local area.
A little reception here. So I've been on hold for 32 minutes, but I haven't been wasting my time. I have written a complaint. I've sent a complaint, so I'm going to show you now. I just emailed it in the same email thread that I had, which was initiated by the police. So it's zoomed in so that it edits out my crime reference number and my log number. So it reads, as you can see, hello, yesterday on the phone, I arranged to receive a call from Simon, shoulder number 56487 today between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. In addition to my previous emails, I had reiterated to Simon yesterday that it has been impossible to get through on 101. Today he called only once, and now I'm assuming it was him because he said it would be him calling. But there was no indication from him, no message from him or anybody stating their identity. So I was assuming it's him. Anyways, back to this. Today he called only once and I couldn't reach my phone in time. He made no further efforts to call. I only received a text message several minutes later providing me with a crime reference number with no further instruction or information to make contact possible. Also yesterday on our call, Simon willfully neglected serious information on my police report, including human trafficking and the hate crime. He only acknowledged my report of kidnapping, though he was not willing to identify the incident as an actual crime. When he was ready to end the conversation, I had to bring up the hate crime and human trafficking. He laughed when I stated there was a hate crime, then pretended that I had reported the trafficking as a past event, when my report clearly states the opposite with sufficient details. My report even links the incident of kidnapping with the trafficking. Therefore, Simon was in fact gaslighting me. First, willfully ignoring, then altering very clear, central, and pertinent information of my reports of major crimes. In combination with this, it is clear there is very little effort to speak to me regarding my reports. Now that I've been given a crime reference number, I should have been given contact information for whoever is handling my case. At the very least, I should have received a second call attempt, a voicemail, text, or email
with instructions of when or how contact might be made. I would like to file a formal complaint for Simon's deliberate mishandling of my report by way of psychological abuse and neglect of contact and follow-up. I would like to include in the complaint of neglect of follow-up the officers or detectives who have been assigned my case and or those responsible for establishing my report as an investigated case. Once again, the steps Simon should have made to follow up are the same reasonable and necessary steps anyone else from the department should have taken. Please accept this email as my formal complaint and advise me what department and person my complaint will be handled by, or if I need to send this complaint to another department directly, please advise which with the contact information. And then I signed it with my alias, the fake name that I gave them. So I've wasted enough of my time. Okay, it's been 36 minutes, haven't gotten through. So I've made my points that I want to make with you through that email. You just saw it. And I'm going to end the call, and for evidence, I'm going to confirm the date and time with you. As you can see, in England, it is 1:27 p.m. on Thursday, August 6, 2020.
The police just called me. It's 12:23 p.m. on Friday, August 7th, 2020. So I advise them if they call and don't get through on the first call again, because I might not be able to make it to the phone. And it's impossible for me to call them because they haven't given me a contact number. They've only instructed me to dial 101, and I've tried for hours to get through to 101. The longest I've stayed on the line is an hour, and that's happened on a few occasions. So we'll see if they'll call again. They've only rung me once.
So yesterday I filed a complaint through email, which I taped. I recorded. Sorry, raised in the 90s, everything is taped. I recorded, and I received an email back saying that I was given a phone appointment with the complaints department on Monday, and at 9 a.m. And then the email said it was confirmed by text. Now, they've acknowledged my complaint, but not the subject of my complaint. This is, so nothing about neglecting the major crimes I reported. They're continuing to neglect the major crimes I reported. So it's just a big game to them. So of course, being a MK Ultra targeted individual from an Illuminati bloodline, the only police I will ever speak to, or anyone in the system, will be corrupt. And there's a lot more corrupt resources to pull from than you would like to believe. About 90% of it, at least, is corrupt. So that is to say, they are satanic Illuminati members. So I had paused the recording for a little bit. This was their call to me today at 12:22. It's now 12:32. 12:33. So once again, they didn't call a second time. When I had made it abundantly clear, if I don't answer, it means I didn't get to my phone. Just give me another ring. Give me another chance to answer the phone. That was part of what my complaint was about. So they're pretending to acknowledge my complaint by giving me an appointment about my complaint, but not addressing the matters that are the subject of the complaint. This is just insanity. And, this creation of a confusing reality and just like mincing the narrative and redirecting all the time, that's all part of gaslighting. And so they're continuing to do the very thing which I filed the complaint about, this neglect of contact. And so this is the email I received from
the police just made a telephone appointment, the complaints team. So nothing about the fucking crimes. And I'll show you the text message. So you can see it's from the police. I just have to edit out the number of the complaint. I'm guessing that's what it is. Just a series of numbers, and it says I have an appointment for it. And yeah, it says the response officer will meet you. A response officer will meet you. Please email if you are unable to attend so the officer can deal with another incident. And 12:37, still no callback. So, you know, the Illuminati, narcissists in general, but especially when it's in organized abuse, they love to do things to waste your time. They want to keep you distracted. They want to harvest your energy. They want you to be so distracted from what matters in life and from living your purpose, taking care of yourself. So they want to keep you preoccupied with their games. Like they're not going to investigate this. I mean, they already have lapsed in that. They're not going to, they're not doing their jobs. But they're keeping me like running in a loop and preoccupied with them. So in my original report, I said that I was available to talk. I think I said from 10 or 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. any day. Now that doesn't mean that I'm always going to be at the phone at those times every single day. It just means that I might be available to talk. But so now that they haven't called me, like they didn't give a second call right after the first one to see, oh, maybe she just couldn't get to the phone as she told us. It's supposed to play on this programming where I cater to everyone else. So it's supposed to keep me from living my day, doing things for myself, and taking care of things, and keeping me home and glued to my phone and my tablet to record. So until 2 p.m. the expectation, and I can tell you because it's like a looped thought that runs through my mind, and I know this programming very well of catering to others. It's got a text. So this like looped thought is, well, now I have to stay home until 2 p.m. It's my fault I didn't answer the phone. It's my fault that we're not making contact, and that's not true. All right, so the text was to let me know I had a voicemail.
7 to save. 8.
I'm going to replay it.
12:22 p.m.
Hello, this is Steve Ray from the Untitled Police Station, just updating you with your crime report, CR. Just to let you know that we've investigated the matter. There is no corroborating evidence as to the comment that was made. Therefore, the report has been filed at this time. It's been filed as a hate incident at this time. Your crime reference number again, CR/20. Thank you.
Press 2 to repeat. 3 to delete.
So
Message has been sent.
So that's interesting. And, you know, I did get that voicemail at the initial call. The text, it just didn't go through, maybe because this is a piece of shit phone. You heard whenever I got the text notifying me of the voicemail. So whenever I spoke to anybody from the police department last time, it was a call handler. He named Simon, and his badge number is in previous videos. He said that he would be calling me back, that he took information from me, and he had to discuss this to know if there is a crime, and he would be calling me back. And so now we got a call from an officer. You'll have to replay his name. I'll have to replay his name because I couldn't hear it very clearly. And so not talking to me to tell me that my case is closed
just leaving me a voicemail so that they can deny the reality of the incident. This is just absurd. Like it's so absurd. So let's break this down. Simon tried to ignore the trafficking and the hate crime in the phone call. Whenever I brought it up, first he laughed at it being a hate crime, right? And then he tried to gaslight me about the trafficking, saying that I had reported it as a past incident, and that was very clearly the opposite. But what is another component was the kidnapping. And so that was the part that Simon pretended like he was acknowledging. And he said, well, he's not sure if it's defined as kidnapping, but he at least acknowledged that part of my report. And then here, they don't acknowledge in this officer, as he's telling me my case is closed, he doesn't acknowledge the trafficking, the kidnapping. He says that there's no evidence to the part that they are acknowledging, the hate crime. So it's so interesting how Simon laughed at it and ignored it. It's the only part that they're acknowledging here. So it's like this is a reversal of everything. And so let's clarify. Let's be clear. He didn't not acknowledge the trafficking and the kidnapping because there's no evidence. There's no evidence to the hate crime according to him. So he's actually just willfully ignoring the two main components of my report: human trafficking and kidnapping. Now you see it for yourself that my reports of kidnapping and human trafficking, and I've reported human trafficking many times over, have gone ignored. They won't even be acknowledged. And so let's break down his PSYOP version of reality, which is that they're, based on my report, it's indicating a hate crime. However, there's no evidence. Now, he didn't say, and he said it was investigated. He didn't say what was done in the investigation. He didn't say what they consulted for evidence and to determine that there is no evidence. But really, like, that is, none of that necessarily matters, because the most important aspect of his phone call is that he ignored the human trafficking and kidnapping. But so with this whole, hate crime has been filed, but there's no evidence to it. Like, all of this is just to create a totally confusing, insane narrative and reality. And how stupid, or I guess you could just say it's arrogance. How arrogant of them to do this whole PSYOP thing after I filed a complaint. And they've acknowledged the complaints. As I said, they didn't acknowledge the subject of the complaint. They didn't take care of the issues. But they've given me an opportunity to voice my complaints with this upcoming phone appointment. So they've just wrapped up their whole investigation of my report. So now, all of that is complete. So I have everything that I need to make further complaints. It's not going to be an ongoing game. They're not going to be able to continue to gaslight me about what they're doing to investigate it or how they're handling it. They're no longer handling it. So the story is complete. There's plenty of more things for me to complain about. So I believe I've covered everything I need to today, just confirming with you the current date and time in Dartington, England. It is 12:48 p.m. on Friday, August 7th, 2020. So thank you for being here and for watching and listening and witnessing MK Ultra human trafficking. Everything that is involved with MK Ultra programming is trafficking. So be it known that these police officers who are corrupt, the call handler, Simon, who was corrupt, they are, in their actions, they are committing human trafficking. And so this is how it happens day to day for an MK Ultra survivor or target. This is how it happens under the radar. Is 2:34 p.m. on Friday, August 7th, 2020. Hey, it's angel numbers. Anyways, just a little bit of numerology for you. So today I am making a complaint to the bus company of the bus driver who kidnapped me on July 28th, 2020. I'm going to try to get the identity of my assailant. I know what he looks like, but I don't know his name or like if he has an ID number or anything. It's going to be pretty tricky, and they're probably already briefed to do whatever they have to obstruct me from getting his name. But nonetheless, I will file the complaint, and they will have a record of who worked at that day, so they will know his identity. So here we are on the website of the bus line. Here is the telephone number.
Good afternoon, Country Bus.
Hi, yes. I wanted to provide feedback for one of your drivers for bus line 165, but I don't know who the driver is or anything. I just know one of the days that he was working.
Okay, so what do you want the reporting for again?
What would you be able to tell who I'm talking about if I just give the date?
What day it was and where it was.
Okay.
And then I could tell you, well, I'd be able to see which driver was there at that time, yes.
Okay. Well, there are a few incidents, but the most recent one was on the 28th of July on bus 165. So the Dartington Totnes route.
Yep.
And it was at 3:55 p.m.
3:55. Okay, what happened?
So this was, I've actually been harassed by this driver for a few times for a variety of things, including not wearing a face mask when I'm exempt. And on the 28th, he harassed me for it. Not only that, he defrauded me into believing it wasn't an issue on one of the rides. He welcomed me onto the bus. He was extra nice. And then at the end of the ride, for which I was all alone, there were no other passengers. At the end of the ride, he wouldn't let me off the bus. He physically detained me on the bus to harass me for not wearing a mask.
Right. When you say you're exempt, have you got an exemption card?
I don't. That's not required by law, and that's clearly stated by the government.
It's not required by law, did you say?
Correct.
Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with that. If you want to board one of our buses and you're saying you're exempt, our driver is well within his rights to ask you to see the exemption card, because there is other passengers on that bus who are all wearing face masks, and if they see you not wearing one and see our driver not actually asking for the exemption card,
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, you've confused a lot of things and deflected a great deal. First of all, I said I was the only passenger on the bus. Second of all, I never said that he asked for my exempt card. I said that he physically detained me on the bus. Excuse me, please don't interrupt me. I said that he, can I speak to your supervisor, please?
I am the supervisor. I am the manager. You are speaking to him.
Great, what's your name?
But that's no odds to you what my name is. I know exactly who the driver is, and I also already know about this incident, and we are looking into it right at this very moment.
Why won't you provide me with your name?
We are going to get a recording of the conversation while you were on the vehicle that day.
So there was CCTV?
The camera records everything what's being said. So if that driver has harassed you, that driver will be dealt with. But until we get the evidence of what's being said, obviously we can't take any action at the moment. But when we do, you will be notified of what's happened. But as I say, when our driver asks you for an exemption card, which you say is not required by law.
Sir, if you're not going to listen to me, why should I listen to you as you twist things around? First of all, as I said, you cut me off.
I'm not cutting you off. What I'm saying
you did before, and I let you talk.
Superior, and I'm telling you, you're speaking to him.
Who am I speaking to?
That driver's superior.
Sir, I need to know who I am speaking to. That is my right.
Oh, that's okay. My name is Mr. Payne.
Can you spell that for me, please?
In future, if you just want to report P-A-I-N.
Okay, and why did you withhold that from me?
My name is irrelevant to this conversation.
It isn't, because your behavior is abusive and obstructive.
That's okay, and I will look into that, because
and so,
there's a recording of the conversation.
You're going to look into what? Your own abusive behavior? Are you, sir? I want to speak to your supervisor. I know that the highest up in the company isn't the one handling the phones. Why are you interrupting me yet again? I got transferred, apparently.
Hello?
Hi, yes, I got transferred, but I'm not sure why or who I'm speaking to.
Okay. My name's Neil. Yes, how can I help you?
Neil? Okay, Mr. Payne transferred me to you. I don't know why, though.
Okay.
So did he not correspond with you about my call or anything?
No, I don't know.
Okay, and I asked to speak to Mr. Payne's supervisor, and he told me that he didn't have a supervisor and he was the highest in the company.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's one of our managers, yes. So he's got within his rights to deal with any call that comes in. So.
Are you his supervisor?
I'm not, well, I'm a supervisor. No, I'm a manager.
Okay, because I asked to speak to his supervisor.
Right, which is not in the office anyway. So.
Okay, so can I leave my number to speak with his supervisor?
Okay.
And then, you know, just to take care of the instance that I just had, this really unfortunate conversation I had with Mr. Payne, but then I'd like to talk to you as well to see if perhaps you can help me with my initial inquiry.
Okay.
So, should I give you my contact to receive?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay.
I was waiting for, so.
Okay, my name is Patty. And my number is.
Okay.
Is it possible to have a contact number that I can ring as well in case I don't receive a phone call?
Yeah, we've only got this one. We've only got the one line, the one number in here. So yeah.
I mean, of a supervisor.
We've only got the one line here, so it gets transferred according to who picks it up. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I was inquiring about an incident that happened on the 28th of July. I was actually physically detained by one of your bus drivers and harassed for my nationality, for not wearing a mask whenever I'm exempt. And Mr. Payne, Mr. Payne told me that you all are already aware of the incident, but he didn't explain how.
Actually, yeah, no, you mentioned that one, yes.
How did you become aware of the incident?
I mean, you know, what can I say? We have received advice from the police that we shouldn't carry you as a passenger. You know, so I'm not really sure what we're going to get out of the conversation here, because we've been advised not to carry you on the bus. So, you know,
and why is that?
It may not be a problem for you in future, because we may well not, if the driver knows who you are, he's entitled to refuse you on the bus.
And why have you been advised to not give me transportation?
Yes, that's the advice we've received, apparently.
I'm asking why.
Pardon?
I'm asking why you received that advice.
I don't know why. That was the advice we were given. So.
Well, that doesn't really line up with what the police said. They actually said that they investigated it, and they investigated components of my reports, and that they closed the case. They said that they simply, well, I'm not going to indulge everything that the police said, but they specifically never said that I was not to ride your bus line.
Right.
So
well,
you're...
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people, there's 3 or 4 people in the office, and it seems that we need to tie all these threads together. So before we go any further, I need to
get the story straight, since it directly, since your story directly refutes what the police said, and you're refusing me transportation when one of your drivers actually kidnapped me. Yeah, I guess you should talk to everybody involved to get your story straight.
I don't believe he kidnapped you. I don't think that's true.
I don't care what you believe. There's evidence, and it's also my statement.
Before? Where did he take you?
I'm sorry?
Well, if he kidnapped you, how long did he detain you for? Where did he take you to?
You're changing the subject.
To be a kidnap,
you're changing the subject. You're changing the subject. You're changing the subject. So Neil, you know, is that your first name or last name?
We'll finish this conversation. I will take a day or so if you ring next week, or I'll ring you back when I get the opportunity, and clarify all this for you, okay?
Neil, is that your first or last name?
That's my first name, yes.
And your last name is?
Romig, R-O-M-I-G.
R-O, say again?
R-O-M-I-G.
R-O-N-I-G. And Mr. Payne's first name is?
I said I will get back to you.
Right, so you're clearly obstructing this conversation every step of the way. Are you?
Okay.
You clearly obstructed every part of this conversation every step of the way. You gaslit me, you lied, and you're in direct...
I haven't lied at all.
And you're in, that's the only thing you're willing to negate. Okay, right. So it has been noted how much you have obstructed, lied, gaslit, and refuted the police.
I haven't obstructed anything. I've just told you that something that was told to me this morning when I realised who I was speaking to. And that's, you know, like I say, until I get this sorted out, then there's not a lot else I can say for them.
And what are you going to sort out? Oh, sorry. Is there a reason why you're not interrupting me this time, but you were interrupting me before?
I was trying to get a point across.
Oh, and the best way to do that is to interrupt someone when they're speaking to you about relevant information?
Sometimes.
You're still interrupting me. You can't stop, can you?
Okay, carry on. I'll sit here and listen until you're finished.
I think you've proven you are literally incapable of a conversation and that your motives are absolutely corrupt. This has been noted and recorded. Goodbye. Wow. Wow. Holy fuck. I just got to take a minute to ground and try to gather my thoughts. So obviously, the nature of the conversation spoke volumes. It says plenty about the corruptness of this bus company and of these people I spoke to. And as usual, the guilty people always want to withhold their names, and they'll usually use like any kind of excuse to do so. Like I even had a counselor at Sheffield Mind. It's a mental health charity, fraudulent, of course. Whenever I called the charity, I was given like an appointment through mail. And when I called the charity to ask for the last name of my counselor, because it's just a Joe, they said that they couldn't tell me that they weren't allowed to tell me the identity of my mental health counselor, my therapist. I found out eventually his last name is Charles, if you want to know. Anyways, that's just an example of like of this pattern of withholding their identity because they are guilty. So eventually, like I pulled out Neil Ronig, I believe, Ronig. I think you pronounced it a little differently, you heard. And Mr. Payne can't give me his first name though. So at first Neil tries to give me just his first name. And then Mr. Payne tries to give me just his last name. When I ask the other manager for his first name, he interrupts me and changes the subject. So that was the overall theme of this conversation. Redirection, interrupting, redirection, diversion, and even blame shifting, saying that I have done something to not be permitted to ride the bus. And of course he pretended like he didn't know who he was speaking to. He said, oh, well, once, and Neil, he said, well, once I didn't know who I was speaking to, but once I figured it out, then, you know, I have to tell you that we're not going to let you ride the bus. And that's not something he was going to tell me, that he was like readily offering me to begin with, even once he figured out who he was talking to. Like he didn't know. You know, if the police contacted them, for instance, that was about a week ago, they would know what was happening. They would know, they would have that in their mind, unless they get constant police investigations. Now these people, the country bus barely has any passengers, especially during lockdown, especially in this area, is a bus for the countryside. So he's pretending like, oh, it was impossible. Whenever I mentioned the date and the fact there was an incident, he didn't know. He didn't know what I was talking about. And also, even though his fellow manager transferred my call to him, he didn't say why, right? He didn't give him a warning. And so in reality, this is all prepped. So this is part of gang stalking. This is part of organized human trafficking. So behind the scenes of almost all the companies that a TI is involved with, public, private, what have you, there are instructions given to people to behave a certain way, to treat them, to treat the target a certain way, to withhold, obstruct things, to report on the targets. And many of these companies are corrupt in themselves. I mean, obviously, if somebody is willing to participate with this, then they are corrupt. But even like at its founding, a lot of these companies, sadly, most of the companies of the world that are, you know, a little bit larger or organized, you could say, they are corrupt. They are fraudulent. They are founded and run by the deep state. So I don't think that Country Bus had to be coerced by the police to include me in the TI program to execute all these orders for trafficking and for all the components of abuse within that. I believe Country Bus is corrupt at its core. And, you know, this isn't the only driver I've had issues with. And they don't have a good reputation either. I've talked to other passengers who said they have had bad experiences too. They didn't elaborate, but they said they've had bad experiences also. And so notice how, you know, interestingly, we got a bit of information out of Neil, but it's like he like sputtered it out in a panic when he was trying to defend himself. And so he didn't provide it forthcoming, and it was all kind of in bits and pieces. So like when he said they were aware of the incident, Mr. Payne said they said this too, but he didn't acknowledge anything about the police. He pretended like the police weren't involved at all, right? And then Neil, who at first he plays the good cop. You will always have that dynamic, good cop, bad cop, in a lot of these kinds of psyops. I mean, there's a reason why the police and other authorities are trained in this tactic. It's because it's known to work. It's designed to work. So Neil starts off seeming polite and ordinary and cooperative and helpful, when all the time it was strategic. His role in it, what he was about to execute was already planned, was already informed to him. And, you know, if I had let him keep talking, he might have hung himself even more. He might have let more information slip. But it felt like a personal boundary that I needed to take charge of the conversation and close off that energy. It's a very, you know, you have to consider psychic boundaries as well, energetic boundaries. So these things are psychic attacks. And when you are somebody with psychic, like really open psychic senses, like myself, it's really important to take care of those boundaries. And, you know, also just the manipulation in the conversation is dizzying, and I have my limits. You know, I've been dealing with this kind of abuse constantly my entire life. And it used to cripple me. Like whenever I was in the fraudulent safe houses and I was living with dozens of perpetrators, and every interaction and every movement of yours was monitored, and everything was manipulated, and everything was subjected to gaslighting, it drove me absolutely insane, and I am still recovering from that. And that's, you know, that was 2 years of incessant gaslighting, among other forms of torture. So yeah, I reached my limit in this conversation with Country Bus for the manipulation. Like I wouldn't be able to, you can't follow the direction of the conversation when it's constantly taking a turn, when it's constantly being diverted. You're just going in circles, and right. But I can't believe we did get that information, that the police had instructed them to not transport me, to not allow me on the bus. Now, I wasn't notified of this otherwise, right? They were just going to wait until I needed the bus, waited around for it when it's usually 20 minutes late, and it only comes every 2 or so hours, and then be harassed by the driver. That's what they were counting on. Also, the police didn't tell me that I wasn't allowed to ride the bus. Specifically, the police who didn't go anywhere near that direction of narrative. The police ignored my report of human trafficking and kidnapping. They only acknowledged eventually the hate crime. And then they used that they used ignoring the major components and the hate crime to close my case. They said, oh, well, there's no evidence, so it's closed, no further investigation, nothing further from us. So that was like the full stop with the police, and yet they're still investigating, apparently, according to Country Bus. They're still working with Country Bus. And I have been now identified as the perpetrator. I am now the one who did something wrong, which is why I'm not allowed on the bus. And, you know, Country Bus, they said, we can allow you on, but we can't tell you why we can't let you on. And that's, of course, extreme discrimination. And the police said that they acknowledged, it just doesn't make any sense. So also, I didn't think Country Bus had CCTV. This guy just confirmed it did. Another piece of information that he arrogantly let slip. Now, the police said there was no evidence. They only acknowledged the hate crime of my report, and even to that, they said there was no evidence. The CCTV is evidence. The Country Bus even acknowledged that that would be evidence. And why hasn't that evidence been looked into yet? By Country Bus? I mean, of course, by the police and also Country Bus. So this is a week and a half after the incident, and they haven't bothered to look at, they say they have the CCTV, but they haven't bothered to look at it. Also, where he slipped up is before he said like he knew, he was pretending like he didn't know me, right? He was going along with this psyop within the phone call. He was pretending like he didn't know me, and he said, and he brought in the exempt card. And then he gaslit me about the law. It's clearly stated on the government website that an exempt card is something an individual can use at their own discretion if it makes them feel more comfortable, but it's not required in any means to be serviced by businesses, and it's not required by law. As always, I was turned into the perpetrator, and this is why I usually don't call the police, because I will be turned into the perpetrator. There's so much more that's wrong with this, so many more components that contradict each other. Sorry, my grammar isn't that great today. It's not great most days when I'm speaking. There's so much more that is just insane of this psyop. Like, everybody's contradicting themselves. There's no logic to anything. People, you know, they are caught in lies, and then they lie about that. So, you know, I wasn't told. I was inquiring about who would be calling me, who is the supervisor I would be talking to. Wouldn't give me the name when it claims there wasn't another number, and that they're going to call me. So I gave them the same fake name that I gave the police, and I just gave the first part of my fake name. So, I mean, you know, I made a lot of my points in that conversation with Neil. Like, yeah, since you all keep contradicting each other and the police, yeah, why don't you end this call? Why don't you refuse to talk to me any further until you can get on the same page about your story? Get your story straight. Like, it's so self-incriminating. It's insane how arrogant these people are, because they're so convinced they'll get away with it. They're convinced there won't be any evidence. They're convinced I won't be in the position to publish it. They're convinced nobody will watch. They're convinced nobody will interact with my expose. They're convinced nobody will care about my expose. They're convinced nobody will share it. So, to put an end to this, it is imperative that you interact with this, and that, you know, it changes the algorithm to make this video, to make these videos, my whole expose, more available online. Share it. That's a direct way to make sure it's available to more people. Bring this out of the shadows, end the secrecy, end the secretive underground human trafficking of MK Ultra victims. And I do have one final point that just came to me that I wanted to touch on. How he said that they've been instructed not to give me a ride and they don't have a reason, and the police didn't say that, didn't inform me of that. In fact, Country Bus didn't make a point to inform me of that. It just came up as a defense whenever I came to them and confronted them. That is TI abuse. Like, that's the most straightforward abuse that you now have evidence to. These are the kinds of things that happen behind closed doors within the community. This is blackballing. So banning without reason or notification. And what do you think would have happened if I went? I haven't ridden the country bus since I was traumatized and I wanted to get my evidence lined up first. What do you think would have happened if I went to country bus? Certainly they wouldn't have said, oh, the police told us not to give you a ride. That just slipped out because Neil was having a hard time defending himself. So who knows what kind of psyop they would have played to prevent me from getting on the bus, or if they would have accepted me on and harassed me further, or if they would have accepted me on through defrauding me to transport me and imprison me, which is kidnapping again, like they did on the 28th. But that essentially, that blackballing is the basis, is like a huge component of TI abuse. So now you witnessed it for it yourself. And everything I've referenced about my interaction with the police and everything, that is it's all been recorded. So see my previous videos. Okay, so thank you for being here, and thank you for witnessing and learning about the inner workings of MK Ultra human trafficking. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.